Namaste yogis and lovers of wellness, and welcome back to the Yogi Blair YouTube channel. Today is episode 2 of my skincare journey. Before we get started, if you're new to my channel, I want to thank you for being here. My name is Vanessa Blair Ferris. I'm a certified registered yoga instructor, and it is my passion to share yoga and wellness with anybody that needs it, but especially those that are healing from trauma. And I think that skincare is a huge part of people's well-being. When your skin isn't what you are hoping it to be, it really has an impact on how you feel and how you interact with the world around you. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and just get right into today's video. Okay, so today I wanted to just continue on with discussing my skincare journey and what has led me up to this point. Last week I gave you the very background information, starting with when I was 7 years old and how my skin has affected me from a very early age, always having issues with redness, things that look like acne, whether it was rosacea or acne, I'm not 100% sure. But from the age of 7, I dealt with having skin and having a face that just did not look like the other kids around me. And it really played a huge role on how I grew up and how I behaved. So now we are going to kind of go into depth about the treatments that I was on before Accutane, because it's a really rigorous process, and I kind of want to just give you an idea of what my skin was like versus what it's like now. So this time frame that we're talking about here is probably from the age of 23 to 26-ish. So about a 3-year span where when I was maybe 22 or 23, I started regularly seeing a dermatologist. And I had been to my doctor before when I was a teenager, when I was younger, and been prescribed antibiotics for my acne, but I had never really stayed on a treatment until the age of about 22, 23, give or take. So I started seeing a dermatologist back in my home state because I currently had lived in Ohio, and I was on antibiotics. I started with just an antibiotic treatment, I think, and that went on for, a few months. And after going back every month to 3 months, we decided that just the antibiotic wasn't working. It helped quite a bit, I will be honest, that antibiotics do help in the short term. The unfortunate thing about antibiotics is that as soon as you stop taking them, your acne comes back. So he then put me on a few more things. For the first 2 to 3 years of this whole time frame, I was on about 4 different prescriptions solely for my acne. I transitioned from the first antibiotic that I took to doxycycline, I believe. And I took doxycycline for, if I started at 22, I stopped taking it at about 26, so, or maybe 25. So I took doxycycline and other antibiotics for 3-4 years every day. So that is a lot of antibiotics to take every day when you're not sick. And I did not like that I had to take them because I don't like taking medications. I don't like building up an immunity to antibiotics when they could be necessary in the future and my body won't be able to fight off an infection because I'm immune to that antibiotic because I took it for so long. So I took those antibiotics for about 4 years. The other 3 prescriptions that I was on, I took the pill, and then I had a gel that I put on my face. It was the one that you have to keep in the fridge. I believe it was called benzomycin. It was benzoyl peroxide and another topical antibiotic that I would put on my face. It smelled very strongly of like an acetone or alcohol or something. It was really, really strong, and it was really drying to the skin. And then I was prescribed a retinoid cream for my skin to put on at night. And then he prescribed me, oh, what was it? It was another antibiotic lotion. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I can't remember what it was called, but it was for my shoulders, chest, and back. So that's 4 prescriptions that I was taking just to make my skin better. And they did help. I was on those things for years and they were helpful. So after a while, my insurance would maybe not cover things, or my body would stop responding to what I was on. Eventually my insurance did not cover the prescription retinoids, so I went on Differin gel, which is another topical retinoid cream, which I still have a little bit in my bathroom that I will put on every once in a while for its anti-aging properties, but my skin is still a little bit too sensitive to it now. So I was on the Differin gel, and I used that up until going on Accutane. I eventually was unable to get the benzamycin, the one you put in the fridge, and my insurance only covered clindamycin, which I used up until the time I went on Accutane. Eventually, I developed such a sensitivity to doxycycline that I had a rash all over my body, and I wasn't sure if it was from sun exposure or from the antibiotic and suddenly now being allergic to it because I took it for so long or whatever, but we had to go off of the doxycycline, and then I was put on Bactrim, which did not work for me at all, and I had to stop taking it shortly after starting taking it. It did not work for me. So I went off of all antibiotics in the summer before I started taking Accutane that following October or November. So that was kind of the medical prescription kind of treatment that I had to deal with before even being able to go on Accutane. I had to be on these things for years before I was even able to ask for Accutane, because with my insurance and with kind of how Accutane works is you want to make sure that nothing else will work for you. Some people can go on antibiotics when they have acne as a teenager or a young adult, and eventually they grow out of it or whatever and no longer need to take it and their skin clears up. For me, that wasn't the case. If I stopped taking that antibiotic, my acne would come back. And I'm actually going to show you a couple pictures here of kind of what my skin looked like prior to my treatment. I'm going to put a picture here, and this is January of 2018. This was when we found out that we were going to be moving from our home state to Indiana. And so stress is something that really triggered my acne. This was the worst my acne had been in a long time because I had been on all these medications that were kind of keeping it at bay. And I had this outbreak shortly before we left. We moved around March. So this is a picture a month after we moved. And it was stressful, and we only stayed in our apartment for 2 months before moving again to our house that we're in now. So we were in the process of looking at homes, and we had just moved, and there was still a lot of stress kind of going on or coming down from the stress of moving to a new state and adjusting. So this was the worst my skin had been even prior. It got even worse once we moved, and I remember this skin. And you can even see all of the blocked pores, the sebaceous filaments, the blackheads, the cystic acne. And it was just really, really devastating to look in the mirror and hate what you saw at the age of, I think when we moved here, that was 2 years ago, so I was 26. This is me at 26 and just feeling like it should be gone by now, and I don't understand why it's not. My hormones had been checked. I had gotten blood work done. Nothing was wrong with me. My skin just didn't respond to anything. So we had that. And then these 2 pictures that I'm going to put up now are the summer before I started Accutane, I think. So It calmed down a little bit, but it would be calm and it would be clear and it would look nice, and then I'd get something. And it was just, that's also super frustrating, because, and I'll put the other one up here, you finally think that maybe this is your shot. Maybe your skin's gonna clear up now. And then you get something like that, and it just brings you right back down to where you were before. And it's devastating and it's embarrassing. People would always think that I was so much younger than I was. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I had acne, and people just assumed that I was a teenager, and it was embarrassing. And I hated my skin. I hated looking in the mirror. And that was kind of all of the background information as to what my skin looked like beforehand and the medical treatments I was on. Now I kind of want to discuss my skincare regimen, the facials that I would get, and the products that I used up until Accutane, where everything completely changed. So I had kind of mentioned in my last video my skincare up until the age that I'm referring to now, between 23 and 26. I mentioned in my last episode that I used that clear Neutrogena bar. I also forgot to mention that my mom thought it was a good idea before the clear Neutrogena bar to have me use the yellow Dial soap, which is antibacterial, on my face. I forgot that last time. That was something that happened throughout all of my childhood, and I even, after getting a face wash, which was probably Clean and Clear or Neutrogena or something horrible, I still use the Dial on my shoulders, chest, and back, which is still too harsh for this area, I think. And just kind of too harsh in general. I don't like antibacterial soap to start with, because it's been kind of proven in studies that you can get the same clean without using antibacterial things, and then you're not making bacteria resistant or antibacterial resistant bacteria, if that makes sense. Doesn't matter. So once I was in my early to mid 20s, I did try to comprehend skincare a little bit better, and I worked in salons. And at the time I'm talking about now, between the age of 24 to 26, I worked in an Aveda salon. So I was really interested in their skincare products. They were much more gentle than what I had used before. I thought that I needed something to strip my skin, and my skin did get a little bit more tolerable when I got a more gentle skincare routine. That's not to say that I necessarily like all of Aveda's products now, because I know that there's a lot of natural fragrant elements which can be very sensitizing to certain skin types. But I think Aveda also has a sensitive skin line, or they used to, that I don't think had any fragrance in it. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But I used the Aveda gel cleanser because I had super oily skin at the time. I used their hydrating treatment lotion, which was like a liquid toner that was more gentle, that it didn't strip your skin. I don't think there was any alcohol in it. It's possible. I got regular facials with an esthetician there, and I tried to use moisturizer as often as I could. I felt like my skin still couldn't tolerate a moisturizer every single night, but I tried to take better care of my skin, and it did help. I don't think that those were the best products for my skin, and they're definitely not now, but it was way better than what I was doing before. Along with facials, there was another kind of treatment route that I had to go in, which is something that I know is not good, and I don't recommend this to anybody ever. But my cysts, which I will show you a picture next week of the worst cyst that I ever got a picture of. And it was actually while I was on Accutane. It was the first 2 weeks that I was on Accutane that I got it. But I had had cysts similar to that one before. But I actually got a picture of this one, and I'm going to show you it next week. And it's the size of my chin, pretty much. And I wanted to kind of show you that. But before I do that, I want to tell you how I had to deal with my cysts, because they were big. Some of them I even had pictures of holding a quarter next to them, which I couldn't really find when I was trying to pull up pictures. And I was trying to pull up pictures of my entire face to give you a general idea. But I had pictures of me with a quarter next to my cyst, where you could see the redness around my face was the size of the quarter. So My cysts were large, they were very deep, and they would last for at least a month, if not more. So, and I never tried to pop them because obviously we all know that with cysts that doesn't work. You can't. And if you keep pushing on them, they just go deeper and deeper into the skin and get really painful and sore and all kinds of horrible things. But there was something that I resorted to after one of my estheticians recommended doing it. And again, I don't recommend this. If your dermatologist recommends something similar to this that they can do in their office, that's fine. But one of the things that I had to do when I had these cysts, because they were so painful and all I wanted was to get some of the fluid out of my skin, was I had to use diabetic lancets to pierce my acne and drain it. And it was horrible. It was really painful. And I'm going to show you here. If you don't have diabetes, you might not know what these are. This is a diabetic lancet, and they are sterile, so they have this little cap on them that you take off. And I'll show you up close here. This is, I don't know if that can focus or not, the size of the needle. It's very thin. These are made to prick your finger to check your blood sugar. So they made them pretty thin so that they don't hurt as bad, I guess. But yeah, that's what I had to use. I'm gonna throw that away now, to pierce my acne in order to get it to drain. Otherwise it wouldn't, and it would be there for months and months and months. I am lucky to not have a ton of scarring. I'm lucky to have had somebody that was kind of able to do it, that knew how to not scar my skin. But it's still not something that I would recommend because it can be very dangerous. You can spread infection. You can get more acne from doing stuff like that. And it can lead to scarring and permanent damage of your skin by piercing it like that. But that was what I had resorted to because they were so painful and I was so sick of living like that. And I would actually I would have the esthetician or whoever was doing it pierce the acne sometimes 3 times. If they couldn't get anything out, they would have to try again and again. And after we got some stuff to drain out of it, then we would take a facial or a body treatment salt. Aveda has like a Dead Sea salt, and we didn't scrub anything, but we would press the salt into the wound to kill the bacteria. And again, I don't recommend that to anybody, but it did make those cysts go down a lot, and it was the best option for me at the time, and I had a trained professional do it for me. I wasn't doing it myself. It was painful, and it was not a fun time, so I don't recommend it. But go to your dermatologist if you ever have a huge cyst that you can't get rid of. Talk to your dermatologist. They can help you better than anything else. They can inject, steroids into it to shrink it very fast. They can do a bunch of stuff. I don't recommend doing anything outside of a dermatologist's office. But yeah, that was my skin up until we moved into our house here in Fort Wayne. We moved here in May, so we're coming up on 2 years in our house. And after we moved here, that entire summer, I tried to reduce stress. I was doing yoga. I was relaxed. There was no more moving to do. I was adjusted in Fort Wayne, and I was trying to get rid of my acne. And it did go down quite a bit. It did heal a little bit more after the stress went away, but I would still get a cyst here or there or wherever. And so I chose to go to a dermatologist here in Fort Wayne and get put on Accutane. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about Accutane, and we're going to talk about what involves going on Accutane besides all of what I had to try first in order to determine that my skin was not responding. Then they're like, okay, we can try Accutane. Then there's a bunch of hoops you have to jump through there. And then there's the whole process of being on Accutane, which we'll talk about next time, and I'll show you some more pictures. So please feel free to comment below. Let me know if there's any questions that you want me to touch on. Let me know if there's anything that you want me to go over talking about Accutane and talking about life after Accutane, and then I'll show you my current skincare routine that is rosacea, acne, and post-Accutane friendly. So those are the only episodes that I have planned for this continuing forward. Feel free to comment below, and if you haven't, consider subscribing to my channel. It really does mean the world to me. I thank you all so much for being here, and I hope you all live happy, live free, live well. Namaste.